Thank you for joining me for this fourth Sunday of Easter with John's Gospel, chapter 10, verse 1 to 10, Jesus, the Good Shepherd. And indeed, I'm happy to be able to join you today because it's a time for us to come together and to recognize how Jesus invites us to be with Him and to be cherished by Him as His own flock. There was one incredible moment that I remember. There was a parishioner who once told me off, and she said, "Father, you are not listening to me." I must say, I was feeling quite guilty that I had drifted off during that conversation. Indeed, we experienced drifting, straying, and abandoning. And this is precisely the reason why Jesus, as a good shepherd, comes to gather us together as His flock, because He knows that we are very susceptible and very vulnerable to danger, to attacks, and to also being attacked by thieves who come to steal, to rob, and even to kill. So the focus of my reflection today is on listening to Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Very often when we show care and concern, we may ask that question, "Are you okay?" And it sounds like a very simple way of understanding, but actually it means something much deeper. If Jesus were to ask you that question, "Are you okay?" Jesus is actually asking us, when we say yes, it means to obey and it means to know. That's what okay stands for, to obey and to know. And indeed, to listen is to obey. Very often we hear, but we do not obey. We take the example of how often we can hear the siren of an ambulance coming, and we choose not to give way to it. And if we do that, we potentially can be endangering the lives of people in that ambulance. And so it is important for us that when we listen, we hear, we have to obey. And difficult as it may be, because we human beings are quite a recalcitrant lot. We like to disregard others, we do our own things in the name of freedom and independence. Sometimes in the name of even our own desire to simply be free from control and authority. But indeed, we know that Jesus invites us to obey the voice of the Good Shepherd. And it means to listen, it means to hear, and it means to obey. Very often, we know that Jesus tells us very clearly, "I am the Good Shepherd, I'm not the thief. I come that you may have life and have it to the full." And this is the verse from John chapter 10, verse 10. And it means that Jesus leads us to life, sustains our lives, and gives us life. This is what Jesus wants to share with us. And obedience indeed leads us to life. It doesn't take us very much to understand this. Supposing if you were on a ship and traveling all the way to your final destination, and if for some reason your superior were to give you an order to abort that trip, would you obey your superior? And in fact, this is what happened to Father Brown, a well-known, distinguished Irish Jesuit, who was also a very prolific photographer. He was traveling on the Titanic from Liverpool to Cork, and he had meant to end there as his final destination. But while on board, he met some rich American family who offered to pay his passage all the way to the United States across the Atlantic. Being a good Jesuit, he asked for permission from his provincial. And of course, the reply came in the telegram, short, terse, and clear. "Get off that ship immediately. And being a good Jesuit, Father Brown obeyed this order. And as we know, the rest is history, that he was the last person to be able to take really very important photographs of the Titanic that had been used to make the movie The Titanic when it sank in 1912. So indeed, obedience can save our lives. And so this is how we must continue to listen to the Good Shepherd, who does not want anything bad for us, but wants us to have the fullness of life. He is the one who leads us to life, gives us life, and sustains our life. And so we know that St. Ignatius also tells us that obedience to our superior is akin to obeying Christ. And so St. Ignatius has a way to tell us it is not difficult to obey when the one we love is the one whom we obey. So it is important that when we love someone, we not only listen to them, we also obey them. And so if we truly love Jesus, we will know that we obey Jesus as a good shepherd. And indeed, for us to be able to love Jesus, we have to come to the second part, which is to know Jesus. To listen is to know who Jesus is. Do you truly know who is the Good Shepherd? Do we spend time to understand His mission, to understand His intention, to understand His vision of life for us? Even when we do not know the Good Shepherd, more importantly, the Good Shepherd knows us. And that will be a great consolation for us. That will be a great joy for us, to know that the Good Shepherd knows our voice, knows us individually. Is to know our voice almost like knowing our unique signature. And indeed, this is something quite amazing that I can share with you, how 3 years ago when I was on a sabbatical in St. Mary's Monastery in Perth, Scotland, I was there during a lunch break talking to fellow participants when someone in the dining area said, "I know that voice." And I was so astonished. When I turned around, indeed, I recognized that person who said, "I know that voice." And he is Father Liam McMahon, who was at that time studying theology with me in Dublin more than 20 years ago. So I was truly amazed and astonished how Father Liam McMahon can still recognize my voice. And it is true that Jesus, the Good Shepherd, will understand and will know and will recognize our individual unique voices. Every one of us have a special signature in our voice. And truly the Good Shepherd who knows us will also protect us, will provide for us, and will continue to also help us to have that fullness of life. So we are invited to be familiar with the Good Shepherd, and to do so is to spend some time in silent solitude, in quiet contemplation, and to have quality time with the Lord. And this is how we are invited to truly have that sense of affinity, a sense of familiarity, and a sense of proximity to the Lord. To know that the Good Shepherd is always very close to us. And we know that to develop this culture of familiarity, we need to spend time in our prayer. We need to also at times be able to also recognize that Jesus wants us to be with Him. And therefore, it is important for us to know how to spend quiet time with the Lord in prayer. And indeed, to know the Lord is to spend time to love Him, to pray with Him, and to also know that the Lord continues to lead us into the fullness of time, fullness of life, and the fullness of his mission that he has also shared with us, who continue to also be a part of all that he has shared with us. He is a friend who has come to give us everything that we need for our salvation. And indeed, in the words of Mother Teresa, if we are to understand what it means to pray, she says this, and I quote Mother Teresa: prayer is not asking. Prayer is putting oneself into the hands of God, at his disposition, and to listen to his voice in the depths of our hearts. And so indeed, we need to know how to listen to the voice of the Good Shepherd, just as a Good Shepherd knows our voice. This is an invitation for us to cultivate this friendship with the Lord, who will lead us into the fullness of life. So my dear friends, I invite you to continue to spend time to be with the Lord, and to know each time when somebody will ask you, are you okay? You will be able to say, yes, I'm okay, because I learned to obey and I know the Lord. So on that note, I would like to give you 2 questions for your reflections today. And these are the 2 questions that I would like to share with you. And these 2 questions will be also put on the screen for you. Question number 1: what prevents us from listening to someone sincerely and intentionally? Is it because of pride, prejudice, or bias? The second question for your reflection is this: whom do you turn to for advice when you are in trouble? Is Jesus one of your advisors or consultants? And what has Jesus been saying to you lately? So on that note, I know that today is also Vocation Sunday, and indeed vocation comes from the word vocare, which is a call to come forward to be a witness. So Jesus is inviting us to be his witnesses, to witness to his love, to respond to his call, to listen to his voice, and to obey his word. So on that note, let us also listen and obey Pope Francis as he invites us in the time that we have during this pandemic to stay at home, to pray as a family, to pray the rosary. And indeed, he has asked us to say this prayer for protection with Mary. And in fact, this is a prayer that we have been using all this while. So it's coincidentally that we have been praying with Pope Francis even before he has issued the latest letter to us. So I invite you to join me for this prayer. The words will be put on the screen for you. Together. O Mary, you always shine on our path as a sign of salvation and of hope. We entrust ourselves to you, health of the sick, who at the cross took part in Jesus' pain, keeping your faith firm. You, salvation of the Roman people and the whole world, know what we need, and we are sure you will provide, so that as in Cana of Galilee, we may return to joy and to feasting after this time of trial. Help us, Mother of Divine Love, to conform to the will of the Father and to do as we are told by Jesus, who has taken upon himself our sufferings and carried our sorrows, to lead us through the cross to the joy of the resurrection. Under your protection we seek refuge, Holy Mother of God. Do not disdain the entreaties of we who are in trial, but deliver us from every danger. O glorious and blessed Virgin. Amen. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to be with you again for next Sunday's reflection. In the meanwhile, God bless you, keep safe and keep the faith, and also listen to the voice of the Good Shepherd. Have a good day.